Hey everyone, how's it going? It's been quite some time. I am finally going to do the video that I've been teasing for probably far too long, which is a video that I kind of felt was semi-unnecessary because there's so many of these. It's the software side of adding the image pretty much to get those games, to get that OS on your modified arcade one-up. And this will probably be the last video in the playlist of the Courtercade mod that I've been working on, the arcade one-up Courtercade that I've been doing for the last few videos. So I absolutely need to add this video so I can have that one complete collection from beginning to end, from hardware to what to purchase, how to install it, literally how to drill holes and get things in there, and now what you need to download and what you need to do to install the software that will replace the original arcade one-up OS that only has like 3 to 6 games. We're now going to have the option to install on a RetroPie or mini PC even, options that will include RetroPie or Batocera Images that have 12 to 20,000 games. So let's just start off with the very popular popular app that, you know, everyone will tell you. I actually learned how to do this myself on YouTube like a few years back, so you've probably seen it from other people. I definitely recommend like ETA Prime and various people out there that'll just systematically and slowly go through things. I personally usually watch a video once or twice before I really get into it for the first time. So, you know, feel free to go back, see any parts you need here. I'll see if I can time code portions. But to start off with, you need to download Etcher. Etcher is one of many OS flashing programs, but it's a trusted one because it really hasn't failed people as much. I mean, I've heard of Etcher. It's just a very streamlined, simple version. But my favorite part of it, you can just type in Etcher and pop it up. It'll have a website that looks like this. My favorite part is that it has a portable version. So a portable version is a version that you can just download and have on your desktop, and when you're ready to use the app, you just double click, it opens, and it does its thing. You don't actually have to install it in your Windows. So when you're done and you want to uninstall it or you want to be done with it, you literally take this program you downloaded, throw it into your recycling bin or trash can, and get rid of it. So you'll have to click on this little arrow button to bring this down to get the portable version. And you'll go ahead and click on that and it'll download. It probably takes, like 1 to 2 minutes. My internet here isn't anything amazing. I have like 400 megabit download, not the gigabit speed, even though it's available here. But for stuff like this, that's pretty much it in real time. It takes about 1 to 2 minutes to download. Now, when you want to download these images that we use, like the image I will be using in this video is the latest Batocera image from Wolfanoz, who's probably has one of my favorite images. This is one that was released, I believe, in February of 2022, so only about a month ago my time, or this year in 2022, unless you're watching this video years from now. It has 12,000 games in it. That's the 12K games, and you'll learn to recognize certain names or certain images that you'll learn to trust, because I've had dozens that have had 12, 15, 20,000 games, and like the first 50 games I tried to play, like really popular like arcade games, only half of them work. And I'm like, the whole point of you downloading these images with someone spending so much time to go through all this is that they'll go through and test almost all of them, if not all of them, after a while. This is one of the guys that'll do that. He's had so many images for so many years that, you know, I believe when they say, hey, I've tried almost all of these, they should work. I believe it. At least all the ones that I want to play. If I want to play, you know, old school Pac-Man, Galaga, guaranteed to work. You want to play certain MAME games, like you want to play something like Turtles in Time or some beat 'em up like Streets of Rage, those will probably work. But then you get into, you know, if someone's pulled off how to get Killer Instinct to run really well, or even in your Naomi games, or if someone's figured out how to get all those games to work really well, someone's actually had to gone in and tweaked all those settings to have those games just work, just from Bootup. And the fact that someone's gone through and done this for all these games throughout years, that's a passionate project. So There are websites like Arcade Punks where you can download these. You know, that's the place to go if you just want to find a big group, a big chunk of these right away. I've used them. I just, you know, I've heard throughout time that they're really just taking, grabbing, and sharing stuff without really any of these creators' permissions, and that kind of sucks because I can imagine how many months, you know, these people spend on these things. So I actually go to their actual websites where you can find them. The other image I use is, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now, but it's a Portuguese image. The name of the guy I can't remember, but whenever I install it, I have to change the language. I go to his actual site. It's all in Portuguese. Obviously, Chrome will translate immediately, but you don't need to know enough to be able to choose, hey, do I want the 64 gig version or 256? I just download it. And I prefer to go to his site, have his ads pop up, and have him make whatever like couple pennies he can make from us visiting than going to other places. So that's that. So this has been downloaded. I already went ahead and copied a version here to my desktop. I'm going to open that up. And I am going to go ahead and minimize that. While that's opening up, let me just go ahead and state that I am on a laptop right now with a dual screen, and it's a medium power laptop. It's not super slow, but it's nothing crazy fast. And speed on your PC will determine how long this takes. So the most important thing to remember when you are flashing this image, it depends on the speed of your SD card. If you have a higher quality, faster SD card, if your image, you know, the image you're going to copy, which is this Wolfanoz one here, if that is on your C drive or is it on your desktop, something local, if it's on your C drive, it's going to run a whole lot faster than if it's on a portable drive. But I get that you may not have the room on your C drive, especially if you have a giant image that's like a terabyte. The last thing is, what type of hard drive are you running it on? Do you have an M.2 hard drive on your computer? Do you have an SSD? Do you have an actual mechanical drive? That's going to determine it. It may, instead of taking, you know, only 15 minutes to flash 128 gig file, it may take 2 hours. But, you know, you do what you got to do. If you can only run it off of a portable drive, just let it sit there. You don't have to babysit this. This will do everything on its own. I'm also gonna, let me start the process, and I'll talk while the rest is flashing. So you click on flash, you choose, I already went to my D drive where I have my image. I'll go ahead and I'll select that. Next, you select the drive you're gonna go ahead and flash this to, or pretty much the SD card that you're gonna write this to. Now be very careful here, even though it's like stupid obvious sometimes which is the SD card, sometimes it's not. If you buy a cheaper SD card, you may literally have a name here that doesn't say SDXS card. It may literally just say drive, you know? The other thing is, there are SD cards that are huge now. I have a terabyte SD card that's the same size as a hard drive on my other laptop, where I almost accidentally clicked on that. For some weird reason, it popped above my secondary hard drive. And then the last thing is that you may have multiple letters popping up. This SD card currently is partitioned between two, has two partitions in it because it has Batocera already installed in it. It doesn't matter if you have anything in the SD card. You can go ahead and format it, clean it first. I did it on purpose just to show that if it does have a partition like this, you should still be able to flash it, no problem. So you're going to go ahead, click on your SD card once you've verified the correct name, what the letter is. Like if I go here, I know my SD card, which says Batocera here, is F. That's here F. I'm going to click on select. Confirm everything here looks correct. Click flash, and you're gonna get a warning one more time. Since this SD card is bigger than 64 gigs, it wants to make sure, hey, are you sure this isn't a hard drive? Because here's what happened. If you accidentally select your hard drive, your C drive, or even your secondary drive, it will wipe everything on that drive. If it's your C drive, that really sucks if you accidentally chose that, because it will wipe Windows or whatever you have installed on your computer. If it's your D drive or your secondary drive, whatever letter you may call it, where you install all your games or stuff, it's gonna wipe that too if you accidentally select it. So this is like super simple to confirm. Just go ahead and spend a minute to confirm it. I'm gonna press yes, I'm sure. All right, so there's a process. It's gonna begin. It'll probably say it's gonna take like 20 something minutes. Let's see. There you go. All right, so about 25, 26 minutes. Now, it's actually probably going to be double that time, and here's why. Once it's done flashing 100%, it then goes through what it calls a verification stage, which is about double the time, and it goes through 100% again. Now, you can have an option to skip the verification stage. It'll say skip. I do not recommend you do that. I mean, so what if it adds another half hour? If you have the time, let this run overnight if it's going to take too long, but it's better for you to do that than to accidentally have something corrupt and have to start all over again. So I'm going to let it flash, I'm going to let it verify, I'm going to be recording the screen the whole time. I'm obviously going to speed through that. I'll probably be fast forward to the end, but you'll see what it kind of looks like. But before I do that, I want to talk about one thing that I'm doing here. So this image is a 128 gig image. The actual size of this file is about 125 gigs. So there's about 3-4 gigs of space extra here, but when you install this on your SD card, or should I say you flash it on your SD card like it is here, and you put it in your Raspberry Pi and start it up for the first time, whether it's RetroPie or Batocera, it doesn't matter, whichever image you're using for your Pi, it pretty much extracts and kind of unzips. So it takes a little time in the beginning to add pretty much another gig or two of stuff that it's compiling, or should I say unzipping, and you're left with very little space. When this says a 128 gig card, yes, it fits on a 128 gig SD card. If you use it as is, meaning with the theme it came with and the games it came with, and you don't plan on doing anything else, you're just gonna pop it in and run it, which is probably what most people do, you're fine. But if you're like me, or you're a person that wants to download and install every theme available, and you want to add more ROMs, and you want to update and download things and change some emulators, you know, that starts to take space. And if you have less than a gig left and you start to run out of space, you can start having some issues. Like it won't update anymore, stuff like that. So what I do, which is overkill, you don't have to, is I usually get an SD card that's larger than the size of the image needed. So my SD card is 256 gigs. This image is only 128 gigs. So obviously I have double the space. Yeah, that's probably overkill and unnecessary, but that's just what I've done because I've actually experienced running out of space. I don't know if it's because I brought in some more games. I think I want to say I brought in some like more Dreamcast games or something. But obviously I filled the SD card to 100%. And then I tried to update stuff. And I couldn't figure out why it was giving me issues. So just saying that once it's plugged into your Pi 4 and you are on the arcade side of it, you can't figure out why it's not working. Obviously, in a computer, you'd obviously see, hey, it's 100% filled. You don't see that on the arcade side. But that's just my recommendation. If you plan on tweaking, adding more, you know, get a larger SD card than you need. It doesn't hurt. The price difference between a 128 gig card and a 256 gig card is probably like I don't know, between $8 to $10 more. It's just something I recommend. But on that matter, I'll go ahead and I'll mention it. I'm using a Samsung Evo Select. So I use Samsungs. I personally trust them more, especially over SanDisk. I know someone's going to be like, oh my God, how could you? I'm going to hunt your family down. But yeah, no, hear me out. SanDisk is obviously the, you know, more popular brands, but I've had two of those fail on me in the past. Maybe because I've used them more, but I've had one fail on a phone of mine, and I've had another one corrupt and fail on my on a drone. And these weren't cards that weren't under extreme stress or heat or anything. They were just used for a couple months, and it happened 2 separate times with 2 separate like latest and greatest versions of the SanDisk cards. They were like Ultra 3s or Ultra 2s at the time. And you know, I swore by that brand. After it happens twice, you're like, wow, okay. I haven't had a Samsung card fail on me yet. I mean, knock on wood, hopefully this doesn't happen like this week now that I'm mentioning it. But, you know, you get scared off after something like that happens twice. So it's just a card I recommend. The Evo Select is kind of like their mid-grade brand. I don't think you need their, you know, fastest and greatest. I don't even think the Pi 4 can even appreciate or recognize that speed. I think this mid-grade tier, the Evo Select, is great. I'll link it down below if anything. Again, any links you use helps me out, so I appreciate that. If not, just go find one. And again, you don't have to use a brand name at all. If you have some no-name brand Chinese card that you got for literally $2 and it works, I mean, especially to run some of these ROMs, like stuff that's like, you know, PS1 down, that you don't need a lot of speed for, of course it's going to work. When you're running heavier, faster things, yeah, you may want something a little bit better, something your Pi can actually use, but you know, you can get away with a really cheap card. Or if you found out that you had a 64 gig card lying around somewhere from a few years back when that used to be great, that's not doing anything, flash an image on it. There's a lot of great 64 gig images, especially for like the Courtercade or Arcade 1-ups that aren't going to run anything greater than probably Dreamcast. Like if we're thinking maybe some PS1 games, Naomi and lower, yeah, 64 gigs works. There's a lot of great images that have that. I mean, I clearly can put 256 gigs on this card, but I'm happy with this 128 gig image. I know it's going to have a lot of games I want, and I'm pretty much going to be set with that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let this flash. I'll let it verify, and then I'll come back. After that, I'll go ahead and I'll show the installation in the startup side on the Courtercade, and then I'll go through a couple settings. Then we'll see if we can do, if I can do it on this video, of RetroPie, just to show the difference between Batocera and RetroPie. And that would conclude this Courtercade playlist. Okay, so that flash is complete. It'll go ahead and say you had a successful flash. Say your average time. You can flash another card if you want to try another OS or image and you have another card. If not, you just go ahead and close that off. And that's done with the PC side. I'm now going to remove, you don't have to safely remove, you could just remove your SD card now. And if you wanted to, since this is a portable version, you can literally throw away Etcher, or you could just keep it. I'd recommend you keep it. I mean, for its size, it's not bad. I'm going to go ahead and move over back at the arcade side of things, whether it's a Arcade 1, some other system, or this Courtercade. Fact is, if you have a Raspberry Pi connected, this is where we will insert our Raspberry Pi, our flash card that we just flashed. Alright. Hopefully this works. This is a new Pi board I just got, so let's put that. Make sure it's not touching anything to short it. And we'll go ahead and turn this back around and power it up for the first time. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, you're going to go ahead and see the Bootup screen here, which is something that will definitely happen the first few times you go ahead and boot this up. Actually, firmware not found, just to let you know. This is what you see when you put in a empty SD card or an SD card that wasn't flashed correctly. I actually put an empty SD card in here, so this is a great little example of, if you see this, reflash your SD card or make sure you have the correct one. I have like 7 micro SD cards right over here to the side. So let me go ahead and stop that. Alright, RetroPie booting up for the first time. This Wolfanoz image usually does this, where it goes ahead and starts. Alright, this is the Wolfanoz 256 RetroPie image. I'm booting up for the first time. The first time, I don't know why, but the intro plays twice. Like, it plays through a few seconds, stops, plays again. It just seems to be something with this image, but this is it. I saw some quick lines of text there. Emulation station configuring itself. Let's give it a few seconds. Again, first boot up here. There you go, you have it loading through all of your different folders, subfolders, with emulators, checking what ROMs you have. That was pretty quick. 2 gamepads detected, that's great. I'm going to go ahead and hold A on the first one. And I'll go ahead and I'll configure it quickly. I'm going to go ahead and just do one. Let me back out here so you guys can see exactly what's going on there. Alright, so up, down, left, right, start, select, select's down here. It's the actual extra button I put on the bottom. A, B, X, Y, left shoulder, right shoulder, skip left trigger, skip right trigger, skip all these thumb and analogs. Now with this setup, alright, hotkey, I'm going to use the top button I have up here installed. Alright. Yep. Alright. Let me go ahead and lower the volume here. Alright, so for this one, just going through it, this is the first time I've touched this image in about a year, the RetroPie one. Alright, so back to where I was. In the power folder, or should I say the power folder in this image actually has a reboot and shutdown, just in case you haven't been able to figure out the switch or you can't get your on-off switch to work. You can safely press shutdown here and then safely unpower this or unplug your arcade without worrying about corrupting anything. Let's go ahead and press start. We'll go to our menu. Go to UI setting, keep that on full. This is where you would have your screensaver settings, where you can go ahead and say that after 5 minutes, go ahead and cycle through what I have set up is random images. This 256 gig image has scraped a bunch of videos. Scraped meaning they have used the internet to go ahead and scourge through archives and certain websites to go ahead and find the little snippet videos for each one of your games, or at least most of your games. So this screensaver will go ahead and flip through random videos, which is pretty cool. If not, you can go ahead and do a slideshow, which is for your images. You can just have it dim, the screen go black, and I'll keep it a random video. Now, 5 minutes to start for me is a little long. Since I usually like to have these in what you would consider attract mode, which this would be, which is something to pull attention to it like you would have in a regular arcade. I do it usually at 2 minutes. You can go into your video settings here and you can choose how long you want these videos to last. I don't like them for too long because honestly these scraped videos, or the videos you'll find in these images, aren't usually very long. They're usually like between 10 seconds to 30 seconds. So right now it's set to play for 30 seconds before it goes to the next video. If you have it set to 30 seconds and it's a 10-second video, it's going to play 3 times, which isn't really like the cleanest thing. You can have it stretched, so if you're showing like a Game Boy or Nintendo video, you can have it stretched to go widescreen, which obviously stretches it. I prefer not to do that. I'm going to go ahead and have it swap out every 15 seconds. Now, the other cool thing you can have is you can show the info. So if this is a random game, you know, you want to say something like Streets of Rage or NBA Jam, it'll pop up the text on the bottom at the beginning or the ending, or you can have the name on the whole time, or you can have it never mention any of the information. It's more of a cleaner look, but for people that want to be like, oh, wait, what's that game? Then you have game info alignment. Do you want that info on the left side or the right side? The size of that font. Here's your font folder where you can choose your font. If you don't like the font that it's choosing for you. And this is the same thing. Another set of settings, but for the image side, not the video side. So if you just wanted to go through screenshots, meaning it can be screenshots of your cover art for your screen, or the actual game cartridges, or whatever it is you have saved. It's usually preset to screenshots of a game. So if your image has that, which most images will, that's also pretty cool. Go back, let's see, quick system select, carousel transitions. So that's the transitions when you're going from carousel to carousel. Theme. Okay, so this comes with a few themes. You could always download more, but I'm just gonna go ahead and choose carbon. And let me go back real quick. And when I click back this time, it's probably gonna take a second because it's actually changing out the theme. There you go, changed out the theme. So now I'm in the carbon theme. Again, you can download more themes if you like. Config input is wrong button. Configuration input is where you'll go ahead and navigate to go ahead and configure your second controller. So I'm going to go ahead and press yes. Let me go ahead and hold down my second controller, up, down, left, right, start, select, X, Y, left, right shoulder, and then skip triggers. Pretty much skipping all the way down to the hotkey, which a lot of people do set their hotkey to the select button if you don't have an extra key for that. So if you only installed one extra button for select, your hotkey is going to be your select again. I actually have two extra buttons. I'm selecting another hotkey button here. Press OK. So yeah, now my second controller works. And go to other settings real quick. Alright, don't mess with your VRAM limit. You can mess with your power save modes if you want. Again, if you have a Pi with a heatsink, something like this, maybe not even as massive as this, but just even a regular heatsink, which is just a metal fin on top to absorb heat, and you get to certain settings about overclocking, feel free to do it. You absolutely can, set that up pretty high. If not, just leave everything here default. Show frame rate, that's actually pretty cool if you want to make sure that things are running at the proper speed. Oh, actually, there is one setting here. Scraper. So this is where they scraped the videos and the images. If you were to add more ROMs to this image, which quite honestly, I really like to try to keep these images that we flash intact, making very few, few changes. Unless you really want to go all out. Themes are different. You can change themes all you want. But I mean as in adding new ROMs or changing ROMs, changing emulators. They've really gone through, the people that make these, especially when you find images and people that make images you trust, they go through all this stuff. But if you were to add new ROMs, you can if you have internet connection set up, you can go to scrape now and you can go ahead and scrape. Scrape meaning you go through the internet again and grab the images and game info and metadata for those ROMs, those games you added. So if you add new ROMs, you'll have to go through scrape now. Let me get out of here. So I just went ahead and I put it right into the attract mode. As I mentioned, it's going to play through some random videos, and I don't know if you saw here, but quickly I showed the text at the beginning. Oh, there you go. It's going through it once in a while. There you go. There's the next one. So you press any button, you get out of there. Here we go. I just went ahead and pulled up a random Nintendo game. All right, random Nintendo game, 1942. Given that this is a smaller aspect ratio than what we normally have, you can go into your settings and change that. Or as this image already has, their project bezel automatically turned on, which are the bezels for the game, which I think are pretty cool, especially if you have a bigger screen. Let me go ahead and do the hotkey here. Sorry. hotkey took me out. Let me get out of here. Alright, so for RetroPie, your hotkey and start button will go ahead and get you out of a game and bring you back to the main menu. If your hotkey select, it's select and start. For me, I have the separate hotkey on top, which I labeled exit so people would know. I'm going to go ahead and get out here. And I mean, pretty much this is good to go. This is RetroPie. There are a few other settings to update certain parts, but honestly, if it works the way it is, given the majority of Pi 4s right now and images, I'm sure that everything's going to work. As simple as that. If you did want to bring this into your computer and add some more ROMs to it or tweak some files, you're going to need to be able to have, you're going to need a program that's able to read Linux formatted cards. If you obviously have a Linux partition in your hard drive on your computer, or you have a Linux system that you can pop this into, you'll pop your SD card and it works perfectly. If you're going to do this on a Windows or a Mac, you're going to need a third-party app that's going to mount the card and treat it as if it's a normal SD card and do all that work in the background. There is an app, I can't remember the name right now. I'm sure in a few minutes I'll just mention it, or I'll notate somewhere on this video, but I'll have it down the link too. Alright, I'm booting up Batocera for the first time. This is the other Wolfanoz image that I downloaded. I think it's the one I mentioned. It was called the 12K or something like that. It's the first time I'm using this. I'm pretty excited to see what he's added to it, given that this is supposedly one of the final images he'll be making until the next Pi comes out, since he's just done as much as he could. This is the unzipping that Batocera does the very first time you boot up. After that, doesn't do that again. It does add probably another minute or two to the initial boot up, but you know, Batocera, quite honestly, is it's pretty clean. It's probably one of my favorite images. RetroPie has a lot of themes. Batocera doesn't have as much, but you know, all the ones I have, I love. So we'll just get to this. This is an intro video that Wolfanoz has made. You can tell because that's the logo up there. This does not have to happen every startup. You can usually bypass these by pressing a button, which we don't have the joysticks configured yet, because again, this is the first time we're logging in, but you can also turn things like that off in the menu. And there you go. So the interesting thing with Batocera is when I got into this, I had some minor controllers mapped. The D-pads worked, 2 of the buttons worked, and that was a little confusing because the buttons that matter, like the start button to get you into the menu, didn't work. So this is where you have something like this. This is a wireless little keyboard. I'll go ahead and I'll link this below with a USB dongle. I have it plugged into my Pi 4, or you can get yourself a regular old keyboard from any PC and directly plug that wire into your Pi 4. And for Batocera specifically, I think RetroPie is the same. I'll confirm that. Spacebar will always get you into the menu, and the enter button will be your OK button. So I'm going to go ahead and go down to controller settings, press enter, because I definitely want to remap these controllers. I'm going to press enter again on my keyboard one more time until I get to this point. Then I'm going to hold down any button on the controller side that I'm going to do first, my left side. Up, down, left, right, start, select, the X, Y. I'm going to skip. Unlike RetroPie, it's not doing the L buttons, it's doing analog first. It kind of threw me off a little since I'm literally jumping back and forth between RetroPie and Batocera within minutes. There's L1, R1, skipping R2, and L2. skipping L3, R3, and yes, I have a separate hotkey button. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead, and now that my controller set up, I'm going to use my controller here. Sorry, let me zoom out for this. Use my controller here to enter, configure a controller. Now this side here. See it here? Up, down, left, right, start. Select tab down here. A, B, X, Y. Skip the analogs. L1, R1, skipping L2 and the L3, R3 hotkey, my separate button I have up here. And then, okay. So let me go ahead and get out of here. While I'm in here, let me take a look at some of these settings, okay? So if you get in and it looks like your joysticks or your controllers are configured, but they're not fully working, I definitely get a keyboard. Press the space button and get yourself back into controller settings and reconfigure those keyboards in Batocera if they came pre-configured like I just experienced. Alright, so theme, I'll go ahead and I'll stick with this theme for now. It's a pretty cool theme. Theme configurations. Alright, there's some configurations here. You can have the systems move vertically or horizontally. Some cool stuff here. Your region, I'm going to go ahead and set it to US. Game list, the game list, logo animate, sure, I'll keep that on. Okay. If you wanted to change your theme, whenever you make a change, that'll happen. If you want to change your theme, this is where you're gonna go. This comes with three themes on it. You could always download. You could always download more. And you know what? Let's do that first. Let's go to network settings here. Alright, so network settings is where you connect this image to the internet. I'm going to go ahead and enable Wi-Fi and then Wi-Fi SSD. I'm going to press refresh here. Alright, so I went ahead and I went to the Wi-Fi setting a second ago and nothing is popping up. When that happens, generally if turning the Wi-Fi on and off does not go ahead and resolve that for you, then you're probably going to want to go ahead and just restart the system. And by restarting the system, I mean to literally go to quit and go to restart system, which you'll see up here. So I'm going to go back now. Go back to network, and I've selected network. I'm going to go ahead and choose the network. Once you've entered your network key, you can go ahead and press back out, give it a second. Network enabled. That means it's recognized it. You get a tiny network icon up here, little standard Wi-Fi. Okay. Now, if you go into updates and downloads, you can download more themes. Click on that. As long as your little Wi-Fi icon is up there on the top, you can go ahead and flip through, select one. I personally like the comic strip one. I'm going to go ahead, click on that, install. The download will start up here. You see that? It says it's downloading. It actually gives you a bar to show you where it's at. See how big this is. You know, they're generally between as small as like, I want to say 20 MB to as large as 50 MB or so, maybe even larger. So that's why I mentioned before that if you have an SD card with no space and you've done what I've done before, which is I went to RetroPie and I downloaded like 20 something themes because I was so excited, you realize, oh yeah, I've run out of space. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I said sometimes I get a card that's bigger than the actual size needed. So it downloads while you're doing other things. Project bezels are your bezels. You can go ahead and download collections of bezels. That'll take a bit to download too. You can go ahead and choose your system. As you see check marks, that means you already have it. That means this theme already has it. It doesn't have Commodore 64 and Daphne and a couple others, but it's probably because there aren't many games for that. You can always go to check for update to see if there's an update for Batocera. This is for the main image. I usually keep that on, but I'll say this much. Keep it on stable, which is a setting I have here. I definitely don't recommend you go to beta unless you're willing to have what you would consider a very functional turnkey image, which is I just turned it on and it worked, will now suddenly be like, oh, certain things aren't working anymore. And then once you have that turned on, you press start update. If there's an update, it'll start. I'm going to go ahead and not press that right now. System settings. This is where you can change your language. If for whatever reason you get an image that is not in English, just memorize that you have to get to the start button, work your way down from the bottom to the second option, and then your second option here, and change that to English. I have had images in German, Portuguese, Spanish, and I've known enough to be able to navigate and find them, luckily. But if you can't, that's where it's at. Clock settings here, power saving modes, I usually keep that on. Coding settings, if you want to use Kodi. Video output should be set to auto, but if you have any issues, you can go ahead and actually set this to HDMI. Sometimes that fixes issues, especially with the audio, like audio output. Right now it's set to HDMI, it recognizes HDMI. If not, change it from auto to HDMI. So overclock, again, if you have something like this on your Pi 4, you can really push your overclock. This is actually active fan. If you just have a heatsink, just a tiny little metal aluminum thing that's on top that pulls some heat out, you can probably go to high. But if you do have a fan, you can go to turbo. You can go even to extreme. It literally tells you heatsink and fan what it recommends. Insane, I don't think I've ever gone to insane. I know I usually keep it at extreme, but then again, for this system, I don't expect to go any further than Dreamcast. So that's what I'm thinking, given that it's a Pi 4. If you're getting a Pi 4 thinking you're going to do GameCube and PS2, sure, if emulators get better, possibly. You're definitely going to push it. I mean, it depends on how the script is written for these emulators, how the code is, how they push it, But from what I understand, with Dreamcast, you're good. You're good at even high, which is the very lowest overclock. Next, storage device, internal. Now, I did do a mod where I had the USB on the side of this Courtercade activated, and it connects to a USB port on the Pi. So I can actually put a USB stick on the side here, or I can put a hard drive and actually have that be my storage device, which is pretty cool with that little mod. That's in a previous video. If you haven't seen it, I think it's my final hardware mod video, possibly the one before this one. Then we have developer and security settings. Again, this is something I wouldn't play with, except for show frame rates. If you want to have a frame rate counter on top, you can go ahead and go there. Security, if you want to change your password. And the reason why I say that is once you activate Wi-Fi, you can now access this system with the internet, with your local network. If someone's on your Wi-Fi, they should be able to access the system. You can always change your password there. Again, those are things that if you want to really delve into, I'd rather you search for someone who really knows that part. There's a lot I understand in that realm, and there's a lot I can do, but I wouldn't want to give wrong information or mixed information. So just YouTube another video for that. That's something you're looking for. Game settings, again, are pretty much, if you've added new ROMs, you're going to want to come here and click Update Game List to make sure that it recognizes your new ROMs. I would keep all of these on auto. So game ratio, so you'll let the emulator decide, hey, this is a 4:3 game, hey, this is a 16:9 game. It'll understand if it's a PlayStation 2 game versus a Nintendo game. So just keep all those on auto. And if you do want to do network play, so you can play online with other people, this is where you'll access that. And if you're missing any BIOS for any newer systems, this will go ahead and check and let you know what you're missing, so you can add to your BIOS folder. Again, if you want to take this SD card and put it into your Windows PC after you flashed it, it's not going to recognize it given that it's a Linux format, so you're going to need a program that lets you do that. And I will link the program on the bottom. On the bottom of this video, when you see the Linux program, so that your SD card can be read on a Windows PC, that's the program. It's a paid program. I know it gives you like 15 days of trial. Honestly, I mean, it's no hidden secret, it's out there. You just uninstall it and reinstall it and your 15 days start again. Or you just re-download it. Now, I do recommend if it's something you use a lot and you want to help the developers, buy it. Absolutely. game collections is all the systems you have. If you want to turn them off, like I get a lot of these images that have thousands and thousands of games, and I'm like, I really don't play the Amiga or the 2600. At least this system won't be for that. This is, you know, maybe for you know, young kids or something like that, and you just want like newer games. You know, an Atari 2600 is not going to keep their attention. You can go ahead and just tap it, it'll uncheck it, and that system won't show anymore. The ROMs are still there, still taking a space. You could always turn it back on, but now you won't have to scroll through yet another thing. Or you can really limit this and literally just have like 5 systems on there, or extremely limit it, and you can just have your favorites folder showing, and you can literally shut all this off. And, you know, like another one is ports. Ports are fun, but other than Doom, it's something I'm not really playing. And you can always go back. Here's the automated game collections. So, like, you can shut everything off on the system side and just leave favorites activated, or 2 players and 4 players, and you can just dictate, like, I just only want to show 500 games that I deem safe for my guest, and have it like that. There is also a kids mode that you can activate on this. There's also a kids mode you can activate on this. Let me see where that's at. Oh, while I'm here, scrape again. This is if you add new ROMs, you need to grab the images, metadata, videos. You scrape here. Right here. So UI mode. So in UI mode, you can go ahead and dictate that if you want it on kiosk mode, which is for someone to test and demo this, which is usually what you want to keep it on. Kiosk mode is kind of like your guest mode. And you can do kid mode. Kid mode can't change anything. They can obviously switch between games and systems, but they can't go into any menus or anything. I think kiosk mode gives you a very limited menu. Now, before you go into that, it'll go ahead and it'll tell you something like, in order to get out, you have to press a series of buttons, like start, select, A, B, X, Y. I hope you remember the mapping of your buttons. Like, it is very important to know, like, hey, I set this up as A, B, X, Y, L, and R to match a Super Nintendo controller before you do something like that. Because if it tells you, hey, press A, B, start, whatever, you have to know that. So let's try it now. Right here. So in order to get out of it, let me zoom in there, I need to press in the UI, AAABA. Do you want to proceed? I didn't proceed. I pressed the wrong button. Kids mode. Okay. There you go. Kids mode. And let me get out of here. Okay, so now if I press do you want to proceed? Yes. Okay, I'm now in kids mode. If I get out of here, I have it set to show everything, but if I want to press the menu button, now the menu button only says information, unlock, or quit, which is great. So now a kid couldn't go in there and mess with all your settings. So let me go ahead and unlock. Okay, I'm going to press AAA. Sorry, got to enter that. And then now I enter the code, which is AABA. And there you go. It now says your UI has been unlocked. Pretty cool feature. Honestly, I'm not sure if there's a way to change that code. Given that it's so simple, I'm afraid a kid maybe would have just figured it out by accident. But, you know, there is also kiosk mode, as I mentioned. So, I do have the theme downloaded. Let me go ahead and... Man, I keep mixing up my buttons because I'm switching between RetroPie and Batocera, and the accept and cancel buttons are swapped. So let me get out of here. UI mode. I'm going to change my theme to my newly downloaded comic scrape. Okay, back out. There you go. It's going to load your new theme now. There you go. There's my theme. Set up. Games. And again, I usually reduce the amount of systems. And I'm a big fan of using the favorites key. So let me go ahead and just start up a game here. Alright, here's a new version, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Let me go ahead, add some coins on both sides. We'll start. Make sure both sides are working. I press start for player 2. There you go. We'll just gonna select random people. Well, it kills me that I'm not selecting my actual team. There you go, so that's working. To get out, my hotkey, I think it's my hotkey plus the start button, and then I'm back out. So this Batocera image is actually working really well. I mean, honestly, I haven't showed it here, but I've already jumped through like 30 games because I was really interested in this new image from Wolfanoz, and I love it. It's great, especially for this Courtercade, something like this. Perfect. 128 gigs and has a lot of games. So that is Batocera. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that if you wanted to add more ROMs or tweak your RetroPie or your Batocera SD card image that you've pretty much formatted or wrote onto an SD card, it's no longer going to be possible to fully see that SD card on a Windows PC or even a Mac because of its Linux type of formatting. So I went ahead and through my RetroPie SD card that I just took out of my Raspberry Pi 4 from my arcade and popped it into this PC. As you can tell, I immediately get two partitions. It's split into two. My 256 gig SD card shows a small 250 MB, not gigs, but megabytes. And then there's this unreadable one. And you're going to go ahead and see that Windows wants to go ahead and format your partition G drive, which is part of my SD card. That is not what you want. Absolutely do not click format disk unless you want to wipe this card and have to start all over again with Etcher, as I mentioned earlier in this video. What I want to show you is the software that I mentioned that does allow you to read these partitions, these Linux partitions on a Windows or even Mac is right here. It's from Paragon Softwares and it's called Linux File System. For Windows, I believe there's one for for Mac. And I went ahead and I downloaded the install file, which is an MSI file, which gives you 30 days free trial. And quite honestly, if you're going to be doing this a lot and it's useful, I'd say go ahead and buy it. I'm also going to say that if you uninstall it, re-download it, and install it again, your 30 days restarts. So there's that. But again, I haven't used this as much. I know I've had to use it a few times. At this point, I feel like I owe these people. I'll go ahead and I'll take a look at how much it costs. Let's see, install for all users, yes. Install my C drive, yes. What's this? Environment. So, yeah, you know what? I'll leave that checked. Yeah. Next. Okay, install. Here we go. It's going to install. And I'm pretty much doing this live so you can see what I've clicked, what I've checked. I pretty much left everything by default. Hopefully this actually starts to install. Usually it's pretty quick. I think it's going to take a couple minutes to assess my PC setup and then install itself. Come on. Then there you go. Okay. You know what? It says my product activation has expired. Let me go ahead and see what happens if I press activate now. Let's see where it takes me. Okay, so you can't see it here because it's on my other screen, but it is taking me here so that I can log in and purchase it. I'm going to go ahead and press next. I'm going to press finish. The software has installed on my computer. It was on my other screen. I'm going to open it up. My SD card is still inserted where it was the E drive, and here you go. So despite the fact that this has expired, I can still go ahead and mount my E drive. So by mounting, you're pretty much going to have this software. If I understand correctly, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, it's in a sense like a virtual mount. It's just going to mount it a different way so that PC can read it and that you can see it. And then you can use your regular Explorer to explore it. And by that I mean that regular Windows software you would use to go ahead and go through your files. Here we go. It was originally F and G. It went ahead and made E, which is now my entire drive. So this right here is everything my RetroPie image installed to this SD card. If I don't know if I can get the information if I go to properties here. Let's see if it'll tell me how much space is actually used. Oh, wait a minute. I can just go ahead and see that here. There you go. So I have 7.2 gigs free from my 256 gig SD card. The image was a 256 gig image. That's great that there's 7 gigs of free space here. That's, you download all the themes you want. You won't fill that. But 7 gigs is enough to add some more ROMs. So bear with me as I go through this with you to see if I remember where the ROM files are found. Now I say that because I switch so often between Batocera and RetroPie, and I believe the ROMs are found in different locations. Let's see, is it RetroPie or is it RetroArch? Let's see. Alright, let's open up 3DO. And yes, okay. So it is here. Yeah, as you can tell, these are ROMs right here. 3DO used disk, so these are disk images. They're like 500, 600, 700 MB each. So that right there shows you that there are some very large games in here. Again, this is a 256 gig Wolfanoz image. So this is where you would add more ROMs. You know, pause the video, take a look again. We are in Home Pi, RetroPie ROMs. And if there were more Dreamcast games or more Nintendo 64 games you want to add, you would go ahead and open up your Dreamcast games. You want to make sure that your ROMs are the correct extension, which is for this CHD files, which is another form of disk files that you can extract. You'll go ahead and add them in here. Then you'll go to the Paragon software when you are done adding everything. Let me close this off. You click unmount, which is in a way a safe way of removing it. Then you can literally remove the SD card from your PC, put it back into your Raspberry Pi 4, and then there's that section in the menus where you can update game list, which I believe I mentioned earlier. And then your new games, your new ROMs should appear in their folders where they should be. Like if you threw some stuff into your Super Nintendo or Dreamcast, when you go into the Super Nintendo or Dreamcast system, they should appear. Again, be very conscious of the fact that you're using an image and flashing an image like I just did because you pretty much want it all to be in there already. These images will provide you with like 90% of the ROMs for all these older systems up to like PlayStation 1, because in PlayStation 1, when you start to get the discs, CDs, and DVD games, they become really large. But anything, you know, I want to say even Nintendo 64 and lower will most likely be there if it's a 256 gig. If it's a 64 gig image, you know, there is quite a lot more to add. But when you add an image that matches the size of your card, you're not going to have a lot of room. If you do get a 64 gig image or a 128 gig image and you have double the size, you put a 64 gig image in a 128 gig SD card and you have all that space, yeah, you can start adding ROMs, picking and choosing what you want. But then again, you're not sure if the ROMs you put in are going to work exactly as they should, and you may have to start tweak some settings in the actual emulators and stuff like that. If you have a 128 gig card and you got a 64 gig image and it doesn't have all the games you want, then you know what? Just get a 128 gig image. You're probably going to add double the games and you may have what you want. And this is why there's so many different images out there. But I just wanted to show you that if you did want to tweak something, let's say there's an intro video that you want to switch out, or let's say there's some save files you want to add. You need to be able to read that SD card on a PC or Mac, and it's a Linux formatted card. Again, I don't know off the top of my head the exact format. Obviously, it's not exFAT or FAT32 or any Windows type of format. It's something else. This is what you're going to use. You're going to use the Linux file system software by Paragon Software. Here's the website. I believe the site, when I first found it in Google, brought me to a French variation. I changed here my language and I downloaded it. I trust this software in the fact that I've used it a few times, but over a span of a couple years, and I've mentioned that I know a couple people online have used this too, so this is that workaround. If you're just going to use the image as is, and it seems to have everything you want, the moment you flash that, pop it into your Raspberry Pi 4 in your arcade, you're done. Don't worry about this. But for the people who want to tweak around, add, experiment, in a sense, change things until they break things, or even add your own intro video like I like to do a lot, here's how I do it. I'll go ahead and end the video here. Quite honestly, there is so much more tweaking you can do with software, but what I wanted to do with this video is pretty much show you how to download an image, how to flash it to an SD card, how to get that SD card in there, the expectations of how long that'll take, or what would happen if something failed, what to expect when you first boot it up, and how to configure your controllers. Because after that, if all you want is to just get an image and go, and most of these images are just great for that, that's it, you're ready to go. You have 12,000 games on some, you have 50,000 games on others. For an arcade of this size, definitely, 12,000 games, stuff like that, super easy. For my larger arcade that I have a PC on, 50,000 games because I want to have GameCube and stuff on it, absolutely. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment below and ask. I will do another video. I think before I get into my monitor hardware, I'm going to do another video about adding other options to arcade 1-ups, especially something like this. So what I mean by that is that these RetroPies have been in demand thanks to the chip shortages, and something that's supposed to cost, $30-40 is now costing $150 because of these third-party sellers that have the very few left that are bundling them with things that aren't necessary. I'm trying to see if I can get a small, powerful Android TV box that has USB ports to pop into one of these. I'm talking about something that's just a little larger than a Raspberry Pi, to see if I can actually run Android and control it with this. If that works, I'll make a video. If it doesnent work, or you don't see that video, it means it failed terribly and I couldn't figure it out. Okay, like I was saying, there's other options, there's other boards. You can go ahead and get the Odroid boards that are out there that are really popular. Those are rock chips. There's also Pandora boxes. I'm thinking about getting it's a $99 Pandora kit, but it comes with controllers. I think you can get this specific Pandora box that I'm trying to get. It's like a 5200 in one. 3D fighting, 3D games, meaning you'll have older games to like newer 3D games. Those generally run in like the $60 to $100 range. Again, if you're gonna spend over $150 on a Raspberry Pi 4, in my opinion, just go to eBay and get yourself some old mini Dell computer, that's like 6 years old, maybe even 8 years old. That's absolutely gonna run a whole lot better than this. I mean, those little computers, you can't fit something that large inside our Courtercade, but in a full-size arcade 1-up, you absolutely can fit that. So, a Pandora board, maybe the Android TV. I'm just going to experiment around. I'm going to be adding a lot more videos and trying to see what other options we have. Because the thing is that, you see these videos, it's an arcade 1-up, it's a Raspberry Pi, and RetroPie. Done. And you know, honestly, that works. If you want to get it done quick, there's thousands of videos out there that have that, and I'm definitely gonna have those videos. I do that, but I want to see what else. I want to experiment with this. There's a couple other people I've seen online that have played around with things, but I don't see them really put them in RetroPies. I mean, sorry, in arcade 1-ups. I see them put them in other things or custom built arcades. So I'm gonna mess around with that. I'm also upgrading my other arcade 1-up with Toulouse stuff, so I'll have more videos. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, if you can use the links that I have on the bottom to purchase any of the stuff I showed here, that would help. Share the video. The more subscribers, the better. I'm actually trying to get to the point where if I have enough subscribers, I can actually name the channel and stuff. That's not that far away, apparently, but, you know, I appreciate it. Share as much as you can. Go wild with it. It helps me out. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.